I really preach with my athletes about being aware of their own body and how it moves through space and taking care of themselves.
Hey, welcome back to the 209th episode of the Athletes Podcast featuring Coach Cory Gilday, also known as Coach G. He's a dynamic strength and conditioning leader, someone who I am very fortunate enough to have had a conversation with for roughly an hour. You folks get 50 minutes of this in-depth conversation with the current director of athletic performance for Triple Canopy, his own organization, just over a month in business. He's also coached for the highest performing athletes in the world. The US Airforce, Shaquille O'Neal. This is the 209th episode of the Athletes Podcast. And for the men out there listening, I highly recommend you check out Caldera Lab. This is their beard product. This is also their base layer product. It's skincare. As you can tell, the beard, the skin, they're looking all right. To get the base layer, the beard, any Caldera Lab products, 20% off. Use the code AP20 to get your very own and let us know down below what you think of it. If you're watching on YouTube and you follow the Athlete Agreement, you'll have subscribed to every episode here of the Athletes Podcast, whether you're on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. You're watching the Athletes Podcast, here to educate, entertain, and inspire the next generation of athletes. I do have to note, Coach G, is calling in from Baghdad with limited cell reception, the corner of his bedroom so that his whereabouts were not shared or any information was not given away. So please bear with us as the connection does get a little choppy. There's roughly a 10-minute segment where the video cuts out, but the audio's there. You folks are listening via podcast. You won't be interrupted. And if you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment below during those 10 minutes during your favorite part, and one of you will win Athletes Podcast merchandise. I sincerely appreciate you folks for tuning in, hitting that subscribe button, and listening to the 209th episode of the Athletes Podcast featuring Coach G. Here we go. You're the most decorated racquetball player in U.S. history. World's strongest man. From childhood passion to professional athlete. 8-time Ironman champion. So what was it like making your debut in the NHL? What is your biggest piece of advice for the next generation of athletes? From underdogs to national champions. This is the Athletes Podcast, where high-performance individuals share their triumphs, defeats, and life lessons to educate, entertain, and inspire the next generation of athletes. Here we go. Learn a bit more about Cory Gilday, the dynamic strength and conditioning leader that he is, the coach, 25 plus years in the fitness, health, wellness space. Cory, welcome to the Athletes Podcast, the 209th episode. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm super excited for this conversation to dive in, learn a bit more about who you are, what's made you been this incredible dynamic leader, and how you've been able to train individuals like Shaquille O'Neal, for example.
It's definitely been an adventure. It definitely hasn't been an easy adventure. It hasn't been one of those things where everything has been easy and, like Rocky says, sunshine and rainbows. It's definitely, there's been times when I have dug in the couch cushions to look for money to pay for a gas station muffin to buy breakfast. So it's been a challenge.
Well, the goal of the Athletes Podcast is to educate, entertain, and inspire the next generation of athletes. Hopefully here we're going to highlight some of the trials and tribulations that coaches have to go through to get these athletes to the best level possible. Right. You're currently the director of athletic performance with Triple Canopy, a Constellus company. I know we are recording this in your bedroom, kind of like how the Athletes Podcast started, maybe for different reasons because you have to keep things on the down low as for your location and what you're doing, but maybe give the listeners a bit of background on what you're doing currently, and then we'll scale back and see where you came from at the beginning.
So this is intentional. I'm actually in Iraq right now, in Baghdad, Iraq, at the US Embassy. I am in charge of the high threat protective services for Triple Canopies, all the guys you see when the US ambassador or State Department personnel leave the grounds, they're the guys that go out, that you see them with in body armor and weapons to go out and protect the ambassador. They're also the ones in 2019 when the normal guards bailed during the attack. They're the ones who stayed and saved the embassy. So these are the guys, they're former special operations, predominantly soldiers and Marines and airmen that have served the military, some law enforcement, but mostly special operations guys that have served, and now they're doing contracting protective services called movement protection. So Been here about a month, and it's a brand new program. It never existed. It's part strength and conditioning, part human performance, part wellness, industrial wellness.
Mm-hmm.
My mission tasking is to reduce injury rates.
Mm-hmm.
I work for, it's a business. They pay insurances, and so they're hoping these guys can get hurt a little bit less, both in the gym and in the field. So that's what I'm here for.
And you were able to reduce the injury rate by 15% at your previous role with Texas A&M, and I believe in Portland,
that's been
Concordia,
a
correct?
pretty consistent metric with me wherever I go. Injury rates go down, and I just focus on movement and focus on joint integrity. And I sometimes people see some of my videos and think I'm going to be this cool Instagram trainer, because I do interesting exercises, but most of my stuff is very boring. I'm very meat and potatoes, and want to work on movement basics and getting good flexibility and good movement patterns before we do anything else. And I really preach with my athletes about being aware of their own body and how it moves through space and taking care of themselves. And so that's a big thing I'm pushing here, is teaching these guys to take care of themselves. Because I was thinking about this podcast as I was in the chow hall line tonight. I was like, unique situation. Guys who work in the tactical fitness environment now work with guys that are Navy SEALs and Army Rangers that are 20 years old. I'm working with those guys that have just served 20 years of all that pounding, and now they're 45, 30, 38, 45 years old, some 50, 55, still highly capable people, but they have a lot of mileage on them. And so how do I
Mm-hmm.
program and keep these guys functional in their job setting now? It's really easy for a younger coach to get a Ferrari that's brand new. I'm getting like the 61, Ferrari California that works well, but you better take care of it or it's going to break.
Gotta make sure you perform those oil changes, right?
Right, exactly. The oil, doing the functional movement screens, and the really cool is that Triple Canopy spent pretty much would have been my 5-year budget to Texas A&M International in about 20 minutes when I first got here. They bought evolved force plates, they bought force frames, they bought a cold plunge, they bought body tempering system. Anything I asked for, they bought for, and they still haven't said no to me on stuff that I want. So
That's got to be a nice feeling to have as a coach.
Yeah, it's nice not having to beg, borrow, and steal for, most collegiate, athletes should understand. Your college strength coach goes through more than you'll ever realize what they're going through. Like, there's times when we want new bands and balls or new racks, and it's like it's a fight sometimes, because there's limited resources at your university, unless you're at a Power 5 school. And so they're trying to figure out what's the best bang for the buck, and they're putting in, college coaches especially are putting in tremendous amounts of hours. They're at 6 a.m. and they're usually not going home until 6 or 7 o'clock at night, and they have a 12-hour day, and usually it's 6 days a week and or 7 days a week of doing something. So, and these college kids don't realize and on top of it, a strength coach has to be on.
Yeah,
they have to be on the whole
and
time.
on top of that, they're getting paid less than $40K a year, less than the janitors,
Right,
as you've put it in the old podcast, right?
You're back to hit a topic of mine. One of the reasons why I'm here is that I obviously make more money here than I did at Texas A&M. I make triple what I made over there. So
Is that the name Triple Canopy? Is that why?
yes, no, but I actually had a decent salary based off the CCSA just released a salary survey about where different zones were, and my salary at Texas A&M was actually probably mid-range. It wasn't better or worse than, and it was kind of like where it should have been. And I think at one point I was one of the higher paid college strength coaches in conference, except for one or two people in the Lone Star. So I was paid appropriately, but I couldn't afford to take care of my family. So, and I had a gym beforehand, and I wanted to get back into college coaching. And my goal is to be at a Power 5 school. This, you know, this had never even come on my radar because this never existed before. To think of doing something like this had never even come up, and it was just something that was shown to me. I happen to have my job, my credentials happen to match it in a very unique way. The way the posting was written, we were joking with my friends. There was only about 4 or 5 people in the country that could have matched what they were asking for. So, but
is that
what?
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying.
Go ahead.
I've always had this Power 5 mentality that I want to be. That's one of my bucket list. My wife knows that I want to be at a Power 5 school, at least for a year, just 1 year. Just all I want is 1 year to show that I can do it.
Just that taste of it. I feel like you still have that maybe collegiate kid wanting to be there as the athlete themselves, right? It's probably that little taste everyone has in the back of their mind. Are you still using your core 4 over there around world's greatest stretch, Russian kick, lunge and reach, over hurdle? Is that your 4
that is my
standards?
go-to. It's always been my baseline dynamic warm-up stretch because it's, for me, it almost acts as an assessment. Speaking of assessments, typically I'm FMS certified 1 and 2, but I haven't in the past done a lot in the collegiate setting. They wanted the FMS here because it's something that the military has used in the past, and they wanted something as a corporation, which was a standardized metric that had normative data behind it. So we run the FMS here. And I mean, I know how to use it correctly. I know it's not a be-all, end-all of disqualification or whatnot, but my baseline dynamic warm-up has always been those 4 movements you're always going to find those movements in there, because if anything, that everyone should be able to do those moves. I should be able. It's really easy as a indicator during the workout and warm-up. If something's wrong is going sideways. So.
Is that your go-to? I mean, for you talk about standards and being able to assess. Christy Jenkins, who I don't know if you're familiar with, she's a former CrossFitter, top world trampoliner. She was just on the pod a couple weeks ago. She posted today, standards, the single most powerful tool for raising team performance. Stronger than motivation, more powerful than goals, more useful than habits, more natural than KPIs. Standards are the one tool I've used to drive every major. I'm curious from your perspective, given how many people you're exposed to, 500 plus people you're responsible for right now, how do you incorporate standards?
Well, so in this environment, with the majority of, let's say, 400 of them, their job is to protect lives. And they have to run a PRT here, which is a physical readiness test, which in my opinion and most guys' opinion, is not very hard. We do have failures at times, and that's the minimum standard, and we set our score point at 65% median, which essentially, D's get degrees, and some people still don't pass it, and they'll see me get really upset because it's super easy. In my opinion, if you're a 40-year-old man and if you work out a total body workout 3 days a week, and you run 2-3 days a week minimally, not like tons of mileage, but if you ran 2 miles after your workout, after each work, you'd be able to pass this test, no problem, 0 problem. But you're so lazy that now you're putting other people's lives at risk, and or your life, because that means you're not going to be physically fit. The good chance you're not going to be able to take with gear on, run across a boulevard here. Iraq boulevards are very big. You're going to run with 20 to 40 pounds of gear on your back, possibly more than multiple times under fire with your epinephrine and norepinephrine dumping into your system, and you think that you not even have that type of fitness level, but it's okay because these guys are all making over $100,000 a year, all of them. There's not one person here that doesn't make under 100. Some are making 150, 170, 180. So they're essentially pro athletes. And so the standard, that's the minimum standard. I start setting standards of like I've been here a month, so we're starting to set standards of like, hey, let's do a dynamic warm up. Some of these guys don't even warm up before the workout; they just go start lifting. So, I'm starting to build my expectations of, and my coaching is not required, which is different, which is unique comparatively to college coaching, where you have to go to the workouts. With me, it's more of I got to create buy-in. So like I am going around talking to people, spending time in the gym. I have my manual therapy background and my soft tissue stuff, I'm able to affect that conversation. If someone has an aches and pains, I can alleviate that pain, and then we can start talking about workouts and building that thing. So my standards, I'm slowly installing them. I have a set. I know what I'm going to install once everyone's bought in. I know what I'm going to put in, but I have to slowly put in things. Um, the strength expectations that I have of them, and I want them to give me expectations they have of me too, because these are grown men. They're out of college. They're have combat experience. They're taking care of families, and they're doing this. But I'm here to make sure that they stay healthy, make sure they don't have to go home. Because if they go home, they don't get paid. I mean, that's the thing here. If someone gets hurt or fails a physical fitness test, they stop making money. So, like, if someone has a physical fitness test scheduled and they fail it, and they can take it again in a week, that whole week they're here, they make no money. And that's anywhere from $400 to $800 a day. So I'm here, and if it's due to an injury, then it's definitely on me to make sure that I can make sure that they, or lack of fitness. I'm here to try to make sure that they stay healthy. So I understand that I have a responsibility. I told them on day one that my responsibility is to them, and only them.
Yeah, and as it should be, right? That's what you're bringing in. That's what you're making the big bucks for. Hey, I imagine fight night, April 7th, 2012 at Inferno Fitness in Vancouver, you probably didn't make $100K on that paycheck.
So the story behind that is, if you look at the video, you'll notice that Rick Story, a well-known UFC fighter, is one of my walkout people.
Yes.
His manager thought that I should fight so I can understand the fight game, to train him, because I trained him for a fight. Actually, I trained Rick for multiple fights that year and years beyond. He has trained with me for off and on for almost 8 years, to the end of his career. That was that was just an amateur fight. So that was definitely.
He looks good. Second round TKO. You dominated that guy. He didn't have a hope.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know I can handle myself. I can't believe you brought that up, but.
Hey, I got to do some research when I bring people on like yourself to the show, because people only see the surface level, current day, present.
Right.
And you've got 23 years of experience under your belt.
Right.
And you've trained people like Shaquille O'Neal, but you also started as a fitness manager at 24 Hour Fitness in 01.
My background is I started as a trainer actually in Gold's Gym in Bend, Oregon, out of the Marine Corps, and then I went from there to fitness manager 24 Fitness up to Vancouver, Washington. Got picked to be a trainer for Shaq. Came back to 24, worked for them, worked for other companies. I've worked for Velocity Sports Performance, Bally's Total Fitness. I've been at Portland State. I've worked for the 125th Special Tactics Squad of US Airforce. I've consulted for MARSOC. I have worked at Concordia University. I was the director of athletic performance there. I owned a gym for 13 years, which I get a lot of weird looks when people ask me, like, I had a gym that was successful, that was making money, that it just was no longer fulfilling. I was done with the parents that were asking me, well, what about this guy? The new hot thing that happened to be not educated, but he looked cool because he was a good athlete, so all his drills look cool. But in reality, he doesn't know how to write a program and doesn't know how to do any of these things. So that I was just frustrated with that, and I wanted more sense of purpose. And I kind of felt like I was shackled to that business. So, the business did not give me the sense of freedom that everyone says it does.
What are most people missing when it comes to health, fitness, wellness?
They overthink it. You know, um, I think there's plenty. There's tons of resources online. Obviously, when I began, back in the Stone Ages, there was no. Well, I started in 2000. Um, I have my undergrad, my master's degree, but there was no quote unquote hop up YouTube and look at and Google stuff. There's plenty of stuff to look at, but it's also like they overthink it, and no one wants to commit to a program and just do one thing. Um, I have even owning a business. Um, the responsible thing as a performance coach when parents would say, "Hey, I'm driving from 30 miles away," when I know there's some actually good people closer. The business thing would say, "Don't turn away their money," but I know that they aren't going to be consistent. So, hey, go to these people are way closer. Go there. Not that I think I'm better than they are, but I think they're going to they're going to get results from them, and you're going to be more consistent with them. And so I kind of have to practice. I gotta have to follow that guideline. If I know that's what I really preach, then I have to make sure that people are doing those things too. So.
I feel like that probably comes from perspective as a kid. I mean, I've heard you describe yourself as a quote unquote chubby athletic kid.
Oh my God! I mean, I was so I played, my sports background is in high school I played baseball, football, I ran track, I was an alpine ski racer, which is the trivia question with all my athletes when they can't figure out what I did when I was in high school, and I was actually very, very good. I joined Junior Olympics all the way till I was 18. But I always had a problem with my body composition, and then I get to college, and obviously with my military training and stuff like that, I went from the still kind of chubby kid, and all of a sudden I found weight training, and my military training transformed me to this kind of chubby guy who was, he works out, but he still has a little extra layer to, and now I've got abs and veins, and I've got muscles, and oh wow, and I tell people, fitness changed my sports trajectory. I was going to be like this, and then I exploded through that. I'm not a super naturally talented athlete. I call people I'm more of a gross motor skill athlete. I'm strong and explosive, and obviously, so the weight room just accentuated those issues. And it's just totally changed it. And so I tell people, I preach that when I talk to my athletes. I go, this area can change your life. I have seen kids that have, and I used to love this when I owned my gym, is taking kids that didn't enjoy, that all they came to me is, I just want to enjoy my soccer. I don't want to be an all-state. I just want to enjoy soccer. So I take a kid who was barely playing in soccer to now they're starting with their team and they're actually enjoying the sport, and they're going to have a positive relationship with sport, and then therefore also have a positive relationship with fitness. And I want to create those healthy relationships with strength and conditioning. I know some strength coaches create some very unhealthy relationships with their weight room. They think we're just trying to create eliteness, and I'm all about creating elite athletes. And you can create elite athletes and not create toxic behavior and bad reinforcements. You can be reinforcing. You can be tough on people. You can do things like that, and you can have accountability and still have positive relationships with things. So.
That 2-minute segment right there is basically encapsulating how I want people to consume the podcast, the show here, and how they can realize the benefits of health, wellness, weightlifting, going for a walk, going for a run, the benefits that come from that. I mean, I know even doing some research from your past couple of years, you dropped a significant amount of weight just going through your own training.
Yeah, so I actually in June, we ebb and flow as strength coaches. I'd kind of gotten a little heavier. Got about 245. Right now, I'm sitting about 215.
15 pounds away from college weight, right?
I'm 15 pounds away from my college weight.
Congratulations.
And here's the people always have excuses. while I'm hurt. Well, I'm actually bone on bone on my right ankle. Like I wish I could screenshot it to show you.
I bet that feels
But
good.
I can still run. I can still sprint. But knowing that I now have I have better ideas of how I should do my conditioning and how I should treat things and what kind of pounding I should and should not do. I mean, I can still go run a 3 mile first class Marine Corps run, because I'll spend an hour and a half on the step mill. This doesn't hurt my ankle. I'll do interval things with I'll do HIIT training with weight training to build my cardiovascular conditioning, and I can still get that thing. I don't have to run anymore. And sprinting doesn't hurt as much as distance running does. But I know a lot of people that would just say, "Oh, I'm hurt, so I can't work out anymore." So
Such a shame, because
right.
the mental benefits are just as powerful, if not more powerful, than the physical.
Well, and some people can pick up on it if you spend enough time reading, but I have really, 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 really bad ADD, very bad. I discovered this in college,
Okay.
and I kind of probably got away from it. And now I have wife and kids at home, and she notices now that I've lost my weight again. She notices, especially when I do cardiovascular exercise. She knows I've always lifted weights. It hasn't been one of those things. I've always been one of those guys where I've always lifted weights and it looked like it worked out, but I kind of had that big powerlifter look for a long time, and now I have more of a tactical look, and I actually can see abs in my stomach, and I don't feel guilty taking my shirt off. Um, but the psychological, emotional aspect, I am able to concentrate better. I'm able to focus better. I'm able to, I watch what I eat. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat as much sugar as I used to. Try to stay away from processed foods. Um, I'm constantly, you know, just it's something to focus on. Other than I don't drink, I never drink, so I really feel better and it helps with me. And I tell kids that I used to encounter kids all the time, both in my gym and in the collegiate league. I have ADD. It's like then this needs to be a big focus for you, because this will save your life. So being fit will help you. So
I'm so glad you're bringing this up. We're going to keep rolling. You played college baseball. You played college football. You've trained, worked with the US Air Force. You're overseas right now in Baghdad. I'm reading books like Jocko Willink's Extreme
yeah.
Ownership. I've got David Goggins. I'm listening to his audiobooks, podcasts. How hard is it truly? Like, people glamorize it and think that, oh, I'm going to go overseas, serve my country, and I'm going to be a Marine. How difficult is it, and what kind of person does it actually take to be able to succeed and complete a 6-month stint over there, 2-year stint over there?
In the military, when you were, my previous background, and these guys will tell you it takes all types. There's all types of people. There's not every one of the SEAL teams is like David Goggins or Jocko Willink. There's a lot of them like that. Um, there's also a lot of very quiet, and they just do their job and they go through. Um, the biggest characteristic of successful people in the tactical environment are just one more step. I'm not going to quit, just one more step. That's just the mindset that they have. They just keep going one more step. So that's what's being successful is don't quit. You don't have to be overly athletic, because we used to joke, and I've actually made this joke multiple times with different units, that the military is littered with two main demographics. The kids that weren't quite good enough to play college sports, and then the kids that always smelled in high school, even after a shower. Just the awkward kid. But the thing is, those awkward kids are very mentally strong, and turn into and blossom into CEOs. They blossom into Navy SEAL commanders. They turn into things that you'll never imagine, because their brain is what makes it. I hate to. It sounds hokey and cheesy, but the brain is the biggest weapon in the military. If you don't have this, I don't care how all of this looks. I've seen some physically imposing people that I've been more afraid of a poodle than they are. So
it's really interesting you bring that up. So my day job, I work for Expert VR. We do firefighter, law enforcement training, process-based learning. We're working in conversation with military organizations as well. And so what we're seeing is that exactly. Like, you can train hard, you can be the best athlete in the world, but if you don't know how to make decisions properly in an effective amount of time that isn't going to impact the rest of your crew negatively, it doesn't matter how big your biceps or your legs are, right?
Right. I mean, and the thing is, if you think about it in sports, if we could get kids, if we would start focusing more on the mental aspect, you've seen teams that are well coached that have no business athletically being on the field with certain teams compete because they're making the right decisions over and over and over again. And when the athletically talented team is making mistakes, they're not. So I think as a performance coach, that the one thing I always do focus on is try to focus on mental acuity and coordination. It's in my programming. We work on decision making skills and not just they're built into my agility programming. They're built into warm ups. They're built into cool downs on neural based learning things. And anytime when the exercise science programs and universities I'm at want to bring out any type of neural learning, I'm all on board, because all I know
you're neural grooving with like Karate Kid, right? Neural grooving.
Yeah, that is we neural groove with sprinting. We learned, okay, we're starting dorsiflex now. We're going to work on strike and back and claw through, and all of a sudden now fire. That is the neural grooving. The Karate Kid is a perfect example of that. But we can do that with so many different things, and even like with neural decision making and making the right decision. A research came out a while ago, and I'm going to claim this that Nick Winkelman did this years ago, where he took a group of Australian rules football players. He had two groups. You had a group of professional, major league, whatever, Australian rules, NFL, what they have got, and then they had their semi-pro league, which are good athletes, but they're just, they're and they took two groups, and they took a set of agility drills, a constant, I think it was a T drill. It was you sprint to the cone, turn left or right. Ironically, in the control group where everyone just had known lefts and right, the semi-pro group, a lot of them were actually faster than the pros. But then when you took the middle cone out and made it a biological reaction to a light and making decision making on where to go right and left, the pros were so far ahead of the semi-pros. So the pros' decision making is what separated them, not their athleticism. So you'll see me do drills, and then all of a sudden I will do, okay, now you're going to run to me, and now we're going to go left to right, or we're going to start agility drills with left to rights. And I'll both do visual, biological stimulus, we'll do auditory, and then sometimes I'll give false narratives. You're reacting to sound, you're reacting to my hand signals, but I'll give you a false with my voice, and vice versa. So your brain has to pick up what stimulus am I going off of, and just building, because that's important as well. How is my processor bring it in so that I can actually use my muscles correctly? So those are sometimes a lot of coaches do not incorporate those into that learning pattern, and I think it's a mistake. So, that's, and the same thing with these guys here. We'll as this program grows, I have drills where we'll build strength and conditioning into tactical movement patterns and how to make decisions and how we groove certain things that help with their shooting and help with their protection their drills. So
it's kind of like that basketball free throw study on steroids, where it's not just the visualization aspect, but it's also incorporating the auditory, visual, all of the above, right? No, it's super interesting. The more I learn about kind of your approach to things, the more I want to dig deeper and kind of see you working in action, because I can imagine you are much more detail-oriented compared to some coaches I've had the experience of working with in the past, put it that way.
And the thing is, you won't notice the detail because you'll see me just, because I'm very casual in how I coach. Like, I'll set the whole plan up and, okay, we're going to do this. And I'll do one aspect, and you'll realize that now we're going to on this one, and then we're going to work on this aspect. And I try to casually coach it in. First, I think a lot of coaches take themselves way too seriously.
Don't we all? It's a struggle.
And it's you know when it's a you have to have presence. It's unique for the guys to call me Cory because I was Coach G at my last stop. I like Coach G. That's and I was everyone called me Coach G, and I get hugs. I got when I left, I have like a stack of cards and stuff like that. So I know I made an impact on them. And I would bring kids in and tell them they're messing up. I would never berate an athlete in public ever. I'd bring them into my office and talk to them because it's my thing is it's collegiate level. They're 18. They're adults. You treat them like adults. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do it in an office. So don't do it in a college setting. Treat them like respect, and they appreciated that. So.
Yeah. What was that process like? I gotta ask. 2003, Rogers and Mike Paris, O'Neal's business managers, they just call you up one day. Obviously, you're regarded as one of the top trainers nationwide. You're chosen from a field of 5 finalists. The Daily News reports on it. Like, O'Neal meets with you in Vegas. Can you just walk us through what that experience was like? Because it's not often that arguably one of the best basketball players in the NBA looks to someone to get them into shape.
He actually met with me. Some of the news reports are wrong. He met with me in LA in Beverly Hills. It wasn't in Vegas. But it was, you're talking about trials and tribulations. When that happened, I was going through a divorce. I really didn't have, it wasn't at a high point in my life, and I remember walking in one day and I was working at 24 Fitness, and the front desk girl goes, "Hey Cory, Jim Rowley has on the line for you." Jim Rowley at the time was the vice president of fitness for 24 Fitness. I think he's currently the vice president for another fit. He's involved with Crunch Fitness now.
Okay.
But he calls me up and goes, he tells me the whole story. And then he was talking about all the partnership agreements they had with Lance Armstrong and Andre Agassi and Magic Johnson, and all of a sudden, so we're talking about Shaquille O'Neal and I was like, okay, get to the point, dude. He goes, well, he's looking for a trainer, and you were suggested, and I'm like, would you be interested? And I was like, I couldn't get yes out fast, and I was trying to be like, could be cool, and so it turned into, well, we picked you as one to talk to, and so they ended up interviewing 5 people, some who didn't even work for 24 because they had some of their own people. I actually talked to Gunnar Peterson, who's a well-known trainer. He interviewed for it too, and I think he didn't want to move to Florida for the summer. That was one of the deal breakers for him. So I interviewed for it, and I honestly didn't think it's like there's no way they're going to pick a 24-year, 25-year-old kid who. At the time, I only had my bachelor's degree and my CS. That's I didn't have my master's degree yet, and I was like, I didn't think I was anything particular. And about a week and a half later, the frustrating part is back then they don't have with a lot of pro athletes and pro coaches, they have an answering service, so you can't actually call them. You got to call their answering service. The answering service calls their cell phone, and they call you back.
Okay.
So it took about I got a message about a week later. Hey, you need to call Mike Paris. Call his line. So I called right back, and he doesn't call me back. It's like, son of a. It took about 3 days to him to actually give me a call back and tell me the good news that I had gotten the job. So for 3 days, I'm like, did I get it? Or are you telling me they picked someone else, or what's going on, or so. But
what was the deciding factor? Obviously, moving to Florida has got to be one impact. I think maybe your stature, your calm, cool, collected nature probably played a factor. You're a bigger guy too. Maybe Shaq liked that look. Like, what was that differentiating factor? Because I know you're sparring with him too.
I'm a bigger guy this way. I'm not a bigger guy this way. I'm 5'6.5".
Okay.
So,
Was it because you were willing to spar with him? Is that why?
well, so I'm the one who introduced him to jiu-jitsu and to sparring and all those things because of I looked at it from a standpoint. Doesn't like to run. He needs to condition.
And he had
And
big toe issues too, right?
yes, he had a really bad big toe, and I was like, I know he needs to be on the court, but I wanted to pull weight off of him first. That was a bigger issue to me, and so having activities that he would find fun because it was something he'd never done before, and he would enjoy those things. And I was coming from the aspect he just needs to move. So I incorporated jiu-jitsu. We hired one of Gracie's students to roll with him 3 times a week, and I boxed with him, which was a mistake because it's like boxing an octopus. So I love that man to death. I would do anything for that guy. That he is. I don't think he gets the credit for the human being that he is. So
he's the man with the most infectious smile, charisma, supernatural athletic ability, Hall of Famer, businessman. He's a legend. Actually, kudos to the Magic because I know they're officially retiring his number 32 into the rafters. Second NBA player with 2 retired jerseys by 3 teams.
But the thing is, he has this heart on him that he's not overly generous, but he somehow always seems to be able to swoop in and always be that guy. So he's a good guy. He's one of the good guys out there. I've met some pros that are not good.
Yeah, I can confirm that as well. After 200 plus episodes, 4 years of doing this, how much of that comes down to like nutrition versus working out and like expenditure, calorie intake versus
for him?
Yeah,
or in general for everyone.
I guess maybe for him first and then general pop after.
Well, I did sign an NDA, so I gotta be careful how much I share here. But
okay.
I'm not even sure I'm not sure if it's still valid. But this is known. So he had a live-in chef assistant that lived with him when I first got there, and I gave him, here's how many calories he should eat, and he really didn't eat out that much. Wasn't a very big
ballpark,
drinker.
Like 5,000, 10,000 calories. How much are we talking? Yeah, how much are we talking?
Years ago, I want to say I had him at 3,200 calories about.
Whoa! For a 7 foot plus, 300 plus pound man, eh?
Yeah, but we were giving good food to him, and we're giving him, 24 had given us. I had all the supplements he was on, every single multivitamin he was on, branch and anything and everything. So the first 6 weeks he lost about 25, 30 pounds, just like boom, gone. And then his chef quit and left, and so I think we only lost another 10 pounds after that. But still, to lose about 40 pounds over the summertime was significant for him. He looked a lot better that year. The year before they did not go to the finals, and that year they went to the finals. They lost to Detroit, but they still went to the finals. It's with any athlete, it's nutrition. Okay. I always tell these guys, you can't outrun a donut. You can eat awful and work out like a banshee, and it doesn't matter. Even these 20-year-olds, I'm like, hey, if you really want to go to the next level, even if they quote unquote look good, I see these athletes that they look
DK
like
Metcalf.
But from an energy standpoint, they're not there. They just don't have the glycogen storage. They're not able to do what they need to do because they don't focus nutrition. Even these NBA guys, I watch some of the NBA guys. Some of the NBA guys are happy they eat breakfast at McDonald's. When the amount of calories that some of these skinny guys burn, they should be quadrupling their calories, and they don't. Well, I'm not hungry, but they don't understand what they really are. They don't understand, what's going on. So nutrition I think is a very underutilized thing in strength and conditioning. You see a lot of Division I programs rolling out the sports nutrition programs, but it's definitely a challenge unless you're going to actually make breakfast for them. Here's their breakfast. Here's your protein shake. Here's your after workout, post workout. Here's your dinner time stuff. And sit down and if you have the time to write out menu diet strategies for each athlete, it's really hard. So
I just see guys like DK Metcalf out here promoting the fact that he's eating crazy amounts of candy. You've seen stories of Dwight Howard decades ago when he entered the league, crushing insane amounts.
Like sugar, peanut butter and jelly, and then what happened is he looked good, and then he was experiencing energy and strength issues, and turns out his blood sugar was crazy out of control, and they had to take out the PB&J because there was this big trend in the NBA where everyone was doing PB&Js before games. And it wasn't like one or two. It was like you're eating 3 or 4 PB&Js, and they're eating like loaded with. They're not eating like the all natural, no sugar free peanut butter with the Dave's Killer Bread. They're eating, Wonder Bread with the Skippies full of sugar and full of sugar jelly. They're spiking their blood sugars up really good. So,
and I think it's just something that. It's unfortunate because it's exacerbated when an athlete does something, says something like that. Then general pop's like, "Oh, if DK Metcalf can crush a bag of Skittles, I can do that," and then go work out. And it's like, for me, it sucks because I try and relay information in layman's terms here for the next generation to be consuming, so that they can grow up being properly nourished and then perform the best on the field, on the ice, wherever they are. Right.
Right. And you hear about DK Metcalf, I had a bag of Skittles, but did you see what else he ate the rest of the day? He probably had like an egg white omelet with oatmeal and stuff like that, and he probably ate those Skittles before he went to football. And as he gets older, he's gonna realize he can't do that anymore. So,
yeah, like Dwight Howard after he realized that he couldn't eat 2 cheeseburgers, 1 large fries, a strawberry chocolate milkshake, and a large Coke before his games during his rookie year, right?
Right.
Were you using lift activation too with Shaq, like prior to games lifting?
No,
I using that with the volleyball team.
So I didn't have a whole lot of control during season. All my stuff was off season.
Okay.
His strength coach that year was Jim Cota. I think Jim did some pre-lift stuff with them. I'm pretty sure Shaq did not do it. Because I just know he probably didn't do it. So I know he was offered. I'm pretty sure he didn't do it though.
Is there a specific type of athlete that you love working with, or sports-specific athletes that you really enjoy working? Like, I'm always curious from a coach perspective if there's one.
The 2 type of athletes I really love working with are alpine ski racers, and obviously, and then football players. Alpine ski racers, I don't think realize what a freak of athlete they are. You'll get an 165-pound alpine ski racer that can back squat nearly 500 pounds, that can 40-inch vertical, and then they can go on like multiple 800-meter runs because they can clear lactate like no other. And so they've got this spectrum of performance in them that just is crazy, and they can angulate their body, and they're very resilient. So they're fun. And then I'm going to be the stereotypical football strength coach. Football players, football is fun because the energy you get off of football in the weight room is just it really makes you feel good when you get out of the weight room. Nothing sucks more as a college strength coach to come out of the weight room when the team is kind of like blah. That's like, and as hard as you try, it's just blah. It sucks. So it ruins your day.
Yeah. No, I can't thank you enough for this conversation, Cory. I've learned a ton over the past 50 minutes, and I'm sure our audience has as well. As we continue to go along here with the Athletes Podcast, as you know, our goal is to educate, entertain, inspire. We're going to continue diving into deeper learnings, following guys like Mike Boyle, who I know you follow religiously.
Oh, Mike is on my Mount Rushmore of strength and conditioning coaches.
Who else is on that?
If I had to so Mike Boyle definitely is there. I would also go with Louis Simmons, which is ironic because Mike and Louis could be completely different. I would also argue that Vershansky is on there. I would say as well as Al Vermeil and I'll say a coach that currently is coaching still, he still coaches, and he's probably surprised to say this, but Joe Ken, who created the tier system, love Joe Ken. So,
Okay.
and then so those are so. I mean, there's so many people that I would like to. Mike has really shaped his writing, his books, and I talk to him, and when I've taken jobs before, and I talked to him on the phone, and he's very accessible, and he's my idea of what a professional strength coach should be. He is analytical. I used to have my full time athletic training license, and so as he did. He's very analytical. He's coming at this. He wants to come through this and figure out what is the best way to accomplish performance. Not what's traditionally been done, but what is the best way to do it. But still staying in that science lane. So, and he can say someone's wrong without insulting them, which I think is a skill that a lot of people need to figure out. You can not agree with someone and not have to insult them. So,
wise words. You're familiar with Brad Thorpe and ISOFIT?
Yeah, with ISOFIT and isometrics, yeah.
You incorporating that?
I have done isometrics for a long time. Some of the research, in my opinion, is inconclusive to stuff. I've seen one of my friends, Carmen Bott, does not like isometrics, and she always puts. She's there on the west coast of Vancouver, BC. If you ever want to talk to her about isometrics, she will not hold her words.
Hey, let's do it. That's where I am right now. I'm in Vancouver. We're gonna make it happen.
So she is. She's not a super big believer in isometrics. I love isometrics for tendon health and body positioning, and I'll use it to prime isometric into an explosive jump, into creating valsalvic pressure and all those things. So I like it for that standpoint. They're not a magic pill. They're not a cure. They definitely help with tendon health when we have achy knees and shoulders and stuff like that. Isometrics definitely help. I think a lot of Brad's research is fantastic. I also know Brad has to sell he's trying to sell his equipment too, so there's definitely ways to skew information, but I think he puts a lot of good information out there.
I'm always curious because there's different modalities, and obviously there's more than one way to skin a cat, and right. I think there's, like you're doing, I can't thank you enough for sharing this information with others.
No problem.
Being willing to take time while you're in Baghdad to come on the show, share your knowledge, wisdom, insights. I have two questions to wrap up. The first, who were your inspirations as athletes growing up? And then the second, the best piece of advice that you want to leave the next generation of athletes with today.
So, growing up, Kirby Puckett, baseball player, Minnesota Twins.
Okay. Why?
And why? Well, number one, because he played the same position I did in baseball. We were built similar. That pudgy athlete that kind of could do everything. Just seemed to really love the game. You'll notice that I'm tearing up because he did die. This big huge inspiration. He really fired my love for baseball and sports and how to really be a team player. And then another athlete for myself would probably be a ski racer. You probably don't even know who it is, but his name is Alberto Tomba. When I was younger, he was an alpine ski racer for Italy. And again, I was an alpine ski racer growing up, and I was infatuated with ski racing. And most ski racers tend to be very flamboyant. He really was, and so it was one of those guys I really looked forward to being like him, because me being a little bit bigger athlete as a ski racer, and everyone was super small. That was something I kind of went towards. So.
The ski racers are another breed. My buddy Bobby Ryan has an engine like no other as well, and he's doing the Leadville Ultra. I can't keep up with him, so I know that's what you're talking about.
Nordic ski racers are sick and twisted individuals that are they're like they're worse than marathon runners. I don't understand them. So
it's a wild world we live in, and hey, we get to witness these incredible athletes on a daily basis.
Right.
And the way we get to wrap up this conversation, Cory, is we get to ask, and I'll start with Coach G, because you know what? Coach G's got an insane amount of wisdom. Is there anything you want to leave our audience here on the Athletes Podcast with today that you'd like to let them leave with?
I would tell them every single time you have an ability to go to practice or training or to a game, be focused and give it everything you want. I have played high school baseball, football, collegiate baseball, football. I played a season of Class A baseball, military, all the things. I'm 46 years old now. I still train like a maniac. I still try to set power, do lifting and stuff like that. I still have regrets on thinking about times when, hey, if I would have trained a little bit harder that season and then prepped that hard, could I have done more? Could we have done that? Could we have done this? You know, we always say regret's a bitch, and it's the one thing you're never going to beat. So the one thing you can do, it doesn't take any skill. It doesn't take any extra supplements. It doesn't take any more money than the other guy, is to try. Effort's free. So
I'm ready to run through this brick wall behind me. Cory, thanks so much for your time, Coach G. I really appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Where can people find you on social media so they can stay motivated?
I got to remember my thing. So I'm on Instagram under, double check here where I'm at. What am I doing here? What am I called? You can find me at Coach_Cory G on Instagram, and you can find me at Cory Gilday on Facebook. I do respond to my DMs too, so if you have questions, I have no problem answering questions in DMs. If someone wants to hop on a video call and talk, I have, again, I talk to my wife and kids on Zooms, and but if you have some questions, I'm more than happy to help with something. So
it's sincerely appreciated, not only by myself, but that next gen. Can't wait to keep in touch. We'll see you soon, Coach G.
Sounds
Appreciate
good.
your
Thanks so
time.
much.